Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the game review, Southampton 1, Everton 2 at St Mary's on Saturday afternoon. Everton picking up our second win of the Premier League season. Unbeaten now in 7 games, I believe it is. And our first away win of the season, which of course is always nice to pick up as well, considering we only had 2 away wins in the entirety of last season. To pick up our first one so early on in the season is a very, very good feeling. We won't talk about the fact that we beat Brighton early on last season and still only managed to go on to get one more other away win, but we'll focus on the positives, and the positives are that Frank Lampard's Everton team are certainly seeming much, much, much better now than what they were at any point last season, really, including in the last couple of months when obviously things started to pick up and, you know, things got a lot better. There's a lot more togetherness in the side. There's a lot more togetherness at the club, you know, whether it be from the players, whether it be from the managerial, you know, staff and the manager and his staff, whether it be from the fans. There's just a lot more togetherness around the club as a whole. There's a lot more grit. There's a lot more determination. There's a lot more desire. There's a lot more passion. There's a lot more fight. And a big thing for me, and it's something that I want to target and talk about in a little bit more detail today, because it's something that Everton have been lacking for a long time, is there is a lot more leadership at this football club now in comparison to not only what there was 12 months ago, but what there has been for the last 4 or 5 years or so. You could even argue, you know, since the sort of beginning of the Roberto Martinez days, when we had the likes of Leighton Baines, Seamus Coleman, Phil Jagielka in their prime. Once those players started to, you know, either leave the club or obviously come towards the end of their career and be replaced. Not so much Seamus, obviously, because he's only just coming towards that point. But once we started to lose that core of that sort of David Moyes defence and Roberto Martinez side, we lost every single bit of leadership that we had at the football club, and we haven't seemed to have been able to replace that until now. Now we're seeing an Everton team which is full of leaders, which is full of grit, which is full of desire, which brings everything that an Everton team should bring. Now, okay, you know, we mightn't be scoring many goals at the moment, and the brand of football mightn't be the prettiest, and we mightn't be beating teams 5-6, 7-0, and we mightn't be sitting here saying, oh my God, look at how amazing we are. We've got a striker who scores 18 goals in 2 games like Manchester City have got. But what we have got is a team of players that will fight, that will battle, that will show that grit, that determination, that desire, that passion, that leadership, that, you know, sort of those models, those personality traits and responsibilities that it takes to be an Everton player or to be a successful Everton player. Those traits that not many Everton players have had over the course of the past 5, 6, 7 years. We've now got an entire squad full of players with those traits. I mean, when was the last time Everton went 1-0 down away from home and managed to come back and win the game? It just doesn't really seem to happen very much. Well, it didn't seem to happen very much over the last few years. Now, under Frank Lampard, things are very, very, very different, and that's something I pointed out after Saturday's win in the midst of the celebration and the rosé wine drunk state I was in. I picked up on the fact that things are very, very different at the moment at Everton Football Club. This is the most I've enjoyed, you know, watching and supporting Everton Football Club in a long time. And even when it was, you know, at its worst at times last season, you know, the loss to Burnley comes to mind, and various other games last season, Watford at home, Liverpool at home, you know, when it was awful, we all stuck through it. We were all still there, but none of us were happy. None of us were particularly proud of the football club. We were all angry. The atmosphere was toxic. There was frustration. It wasn't a good place to be. We weren't in a very good place at all. Now that has completely changed and completely flipped on its head. And even though, you know, Saturday was only our second Premier League win this season, even when we weren't winning games, in the games that we were drawing, in the games that we were, again, maybe we should have done a little bit better in, there was still that feeling of a togetherness. There was still that feeling of something's brewing here, something's building. And I remember saying a couple of weeks ago, I think it was either after the Brentford draw or the Leeds draw, this will click. This will click at some point. And when this clicks, we've got something really, really good going on here. And now we're coming off the back of 2 straight wins, back-to-back wins. And for me, as I said, the most impressive thing is a win in which we've gone behind away from home, and typically in years gone by, whether we were at home or away from home, but we'll speak specifically about being away because that's where we were on Saturday. And we've gone 1-0 down, heads have dropped, players have completely collapsed, players have completely capitulated. It's almost been a sort of acceptance that the game was done and dusted at that point. I remember, it being a really, really competitive game at Villa Park last season, and we went 1-0 down, and within 9 minutes we were 3-0 down, and the game was completely over. And that was the norm at Everton Football Club. You'd go 1-0 down, especially away from home, and it was almost like the players had just accepted, right, okay, that was it. And the fan base, at times we're accepting, we've gone 1-0 down now, so we're never going to win this game. Whereas on Saturday we went 1-0 down, and within 3 minutes we were 2-1 up, because we knew, hang on, we shouldn't be 1-0 down in this game, because A, these aren't very good, and B, these haven't created an awful lot. But we also have gone from a team of players that would go 1-0 down, drop their heads, sulk, walk around, and not really have any interest in getting back into the game with a defeatist mentality, to a team of players who picked themselves up. Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, Adesina, Amadou Onana, Vitaly Mikalenko, Jordan Pickford, Alex Iwobi, Alex Iwobi's new sort of resurgence, I suppose, as a footballer, the forward players that go, no, do you know what, we shouldn't be 1-0 down here, so we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to go again. And it just, we'll talk about the game in specific detail and the goals and obviously how important this win is in terms of, the table. I think we're now joint on points with Liverpool, sitting 11th in the Premier League, and if we beat Manchester United next Sunday, which is very, very, very possible given their result a couple of days ago and how embarrassed they were. Now, granted, okay, they were beaten by the best team in the country by a long stretch and absolutely dominated by two of the best young players on the planet. However, they were still beaten, they were still embarrassed, and they've got to come to Goodison Park on a Sunday night under the lights, a stadium in which they haven't got a particularly great record at in recent years. If we beat Manchester United on Sunday, we all of a sudden go above them, a team that last week were being spoken about as a team that will finish in the top four without no problem this season. So things are going very, very well at the moment for Frank Lampard and for Everton, and as I said, unbeaten in 7, best defensive record in the Premier League. But all of that are things that we can look at and we can be happy about, and we can sort of look at how, we can say, look at how much we've improved since last season. But the thing that stands out most for me is just the character and the personality of this team more than anything. The performances and the results, and the best defensive stat in the league, and climbing up the table and winning games, and 2 wins on the bounce and a win away from home, that's all great, and that's all fine, and that's all, that's the stuff that'll be spoken about by the by non-Evertonians who are sort of analysing Everton this season. But I think from an Evertonian's point of view, and I think most people watching will agree, the thing that we're noticing more is the complete shift in personality of this team, these players, this football club. I can't remember loving an Everton side more than, this much in a long, long, long time. I can't remember loving a manager this much in a long, long, long time. The Carlo Ancelotti era was very, very, very strange, because I think it was a mix of disbelief that he was Everton manager, and a mix of that, and being in a global pandemic and not being able to go and watch the game, and almost being in a disbelief that football was happening because you couldn't go and watch. And it was the first time in everybody's lifetime that you have been able to go and watch a game of football because of what was happening, and the first time in everybody's lifetime that we'd been involved in such as a catastrophic event. So, the Ancelotti era was very much up in the air because of that. But I haven't loved an Everton manager in the way I love Frank Lampard for a long, 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 long time. I haven't been able to relate to an Everton team as much as I can relate to this Everton team for a long, long, long time. And whilst it mightn't be the best Everton team I've ever seen, and whilst it mightn't have the best technical Everton players I've ever seen, it's much more relatable than any team that we've witnessed for a while. And as I said, the team has got those core fundamentals as to what it takes to be Everton. This is Everton. That's my Everton. Okay, Carlo Ancelotti's side at times played absolutely amazing football, but there was always a lack of leadership. There was always a lack of real defensive core. There was always a lack of stability. There was always a lack of consistency. Hence why on Boxing Day we were second in the Premier League and we ended up finishing 10th at the end of the season. Everton Football Club is ran on hard work, grit, determination, battle, consistency. The days of David Moyes, we didn't have the greatest of players, but we always give everything every week. And we lost our way. We lost our way an awful lot by trying to go out and bring in the greatest of players. And in doing so, not only did we fail to bring in the greatest of players, we just brought in overpriced shite. But we also lost the fundamentals of what it takes to be an Everton player, because the personalities we were bringing into the football club weren't able to match those fundamentals. Whereas now we're bringing in Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, Adrissa Garner-Gaybach, Amadou Onana, Neil Maupay, players that are able to bring those personality traits and those fundamentals of what it takes to be loved by Evertonians and what it takes to be an Everton player. And that's what we're seeing at the moment. And we've got a manager who first and foremost understands that. And I think a lot of credit has to be given to Frank Lampard for that, because one thing that Frank Lampard has quite evidently done over the last 12 months, well, I say 12 months, over the last 8-9 months or so since he's been in the job, is he's come in, and he come in at a time when we needed results instantly. You know, there was never any periods of sort of introducing a style of football or a way of playing or a system. It was just about doing what he needed to do to win games of football at that time with the players he had at his disposal. But what I think Frank Lampard quickly did was understand the football club, and it takes, it really, really, really warrants more credit than I can even begin to imagine as to the fact that he come in and instantly, whilst needing to get results instantly, whilst needing to improve the team, whilst needing to survive, because that was ultimately that was the goal, wasn't it? And, I suppose a question that is unanswered and none of us want to ever think about, because we don't even want to bear to think about that situation or talk about last season again. But the unanswered question is, would Frank Lampard still be in a job if Everton were relegated? We don't know. But one thing Frank did when he come in was understand the football club, understand what the fans demanded, understand the history of Everton Football Club, what it takes to be an Everton manager, what it takes to be an Everton player, what the Evertonians look for in their team and their players. And he's gone out and done that with Kevin Thelwell. As somebody's gone out and brought players in that bring that, but he's also adopted that in himself. And as I said, the feeling around Everton at the moment is just one that it just feels right. Everything feels right at the moment, and we're not top of the league. We're not unbeaten. We've lost games this season that we shouldn't have lost. We've drawn games this season that we shouldn't have lost. I sat here yesterday and watched Nottingham Forest get absolutely hammered by a Leicester team who are absolutely atrocious, and I couldn't help but think, I'm really, really frustrated that we didn't beat these, because they're dreadful. Nottingham Forest are absolutely atrocious, and how, not only did we manage to not beat them at Goodison, but, we nearly lost to them, is a disappointment. The same with Villa. Villa are an absolutely atrocious football team, and how we lost to them earlier on in the season is a disappointment as well. So it's not like, we're in an absolute perfect storm and we're top of the league and we've won every game. But that's not the point. That doesn't matter. Everything just feels right at the moment, and it feels like something is building. I think this result on Saturday really sort of proves that. It hits that home, because I have got not one doubt in my mind that had this game had been last season under the previous manager, we would have lost. Had it have been the season before under Carlo Ancelotti, I think we would have lost. Now, okay, we had a very good record away in COVID, but let's just say we went 1-0 down in front of a full stadium. I think we would have lost. Had it have been under any of the other managers, Marco Silva, Ronald Koeman, Sam Allardyce, we would have lost. And that tells you just how important this win was in terms of the personality of it, of going 1-0 down and players going, nah, not having that, we're picking ourselves up, we're going again. And okay, the second half, we weren't great, and we invited them on a little bit, and maybe we were a little bit defensive, and maybe we could have been a little bit more attacking and a little bit more progressive and a little bit better. But we held out to win the game of football, and we ended up winning the game of football. And as I said, maybe had circumstances been a little bit different, maybe had we have had Dominic Calvert-Lewin available to come on, we would have gone a little bit more attacking, we would have maybe gone for the game by the throws a little bit more, and okay, you could sit here and say, well, had Jordan Pickford not made the save he did, then you wouldn't have won the game, and that's fine, but that's what happens when you've got a world-class goalkeeper. I'm absolutely sick of hearing these, opposition fans, and it was the exact same after the Merseyside derby, wasn't it? Wow, well, Jordan Pickford saved you a point. If you didn't have Jordan, you're lucky that you had Jordan Pickford. No, we're not lucky. There's nothing lucky about having a genuine world-class goalkeeper. It's called good recruitment, something that you don't really mention very often when talking about Everton prior to Kevin Thelwell, because the recruitment this summer has been absolutely phenomenal. But prior to Kevin Thelwell, you didn't really mention good recruitment in Everton, certainly not Ronald Koeman's Everton and good recruitment. That's not even a fucking thing. But the Jordan Pickford example is an example of great recruitment. It's nothing to do with being lucky. Manchester City aren't lucky they've got Erling Haaland. It's called good fucking recruitment. So, yes, we could have been a little bit better in the second half on Saturday, and yes, we maybe could have attacked the game a little bit more, and yes, maybe we rolled our luck a little bit. But we done what we needed to do to get over the line, and we'll talk about the game in greater detail in a moment, but I just want to specifically speak about the second goal, because there's a moment which proves everything I've just said in the first 15 minutes of this live stream, just before the second goal. So Southampton go 1-0 up, as I said. We'll go into more detail in a moment. Game makes the mistake, they go 1-0 up. Instantly we get down the other end, and we get the equaliser. We win a free kick, good ball in. Amadou Onana does wonderfully, shows wonderful ability, not only physically in the air, but also, ability in terms of his football and brain to be able to think, right, instead of going for goal here, I'm going to knock this down and guarantee a goal. Connor Cody's on the end of it. He puts it into the back of the net. Made up for Connor Cody. Deserved that goal. Deserved it in the derby. It was chalked off him because of a millimetre or whatever it was, and he deserved it the other day. He was absolutely excellent. I've gone flying, by the way, at this point. I've got bruises up and down my legs. I've got a cut across my leg because I flew about 4 rows when this goal went in. But just before we scored the second goal, Southampton had another attack. Now, again, previous seasons, we get back into the game. The opposition gets on the attack, and maybe our defence, for lack of a better phrase, shits themselves a little bit because they're under pressure again. Everything's happening so quickly. The game's got a tempo to it, and maybe we can see the second one. What happens in this game is Vitaly Mykolenko, Seamus Coleman, Connor Cody, James Tarkowski, I think Alex Iwobi is involved, Jordan Pickford. They all throw themselves at the ball. You've all seen the video. If you've not seen the video, it's on our Twitter. If you scroll back through Saturday, you'll see it. If you watch the game, you'll have seen it in real time. If you watch the highlights, you'll have seen it in real time. About 4 Everton players throw themselves at every single attempt Southampton have. I think Pickford makes the first save, then Mykolenko blocks the second one, then Coleman throws himself in the way and blocks the third one. But there's also 2 Everton players on the line ready to throw themselves at it if it gets past that first line of defence. So there's almost 2 lines of defence, 3 or 4 players that are throwing themselves at the ball then, and then 2 or 3 behind them that are ready to throw themselves at the ball. Now that's what you call commitment. That's what you call desire. That's what you call an absolute there's absolutely no acceptance of going behind again in that moment by any of those Everton players. There's not an acceptance. Not one of them stood and didn't mark their man. Not one of them stood and watched the Southampton player run in. Not one of them stood off a player and let them get an easy shot on goal, or sort of stood round and watched and thought, shit, where's that going? Every one of them, through whether it was, a little bit unconventional, shall we say, it doesn't matter. They threw themselves at the ball, and literally 20 seconds later, Iwobi gets it. Mopé does well to hold it up, gets it out to Gray. I think Gray passes it to Iwobi. Iwobi plays an unbelievable cross in the box. Onana's fouled, doesn't get it, falls to Dwight McNeil. He makes it 2-1. But it comes from 6-7 Everton players willing to throw their bodies on the line to deny a goal. Would you have seen that last season under Rafael Benitez? No. Would you have seen it in Carlo Ancelotti's time at Everton? I don't believe you would have. Would you have seen it in any of the previous 4 or 5 managers? No, you wouldn't have seen that since probably David Moyes. And I don't want to compare Frank Lampard to David Moyes because it's very different times, very different eras, very different Everton teams and very different managers with very different outcomes and goals. But David Moyes instilled an identity into this football club, an identity that we all knew and we all loved and we all demanded, which was players that come in, and whether you were the best in the world or whether you were just a lad who could kick a ball, you give everything. And if you didn't give everything, you weren't involved. And we lost that over recent years. We've now got that back, and if we can now build on that and keep that identity whilst adding quality to the team in future transfer windows, then this team could go on and maybe do special things. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because of last season and how last season went, but I do, and I don't say this lightly, but I do finally think and believe that we're getting an identity back. We're getting the Everton Football Club back that we all know and we all love. And yes, it's great to have silky players that can turn up and that can rip teams apart, and you want that as well, but you also want players that are going to fight and give everything, and that's what we've got. And no football club in this world, in any league, in any country, in any era, is successful without its leaders. And Everton have massively lacked leadership for the last 10 years, if not more. We've now got leaders in abundance. I remember a time when I'd come on the channel and look at an Everton team, and I wouldn't be able to pick one leader out of the side. In fact, when talking about the captaincy, I'd often say it doesn't really matter who has the armband, because none of them are natural leaders. None of them are going to turn up and lead the team. And by the way, those conversations include the players that are still at the club and still playing in the starting 11 now for Everton. But back then, they shied away from challenges. They weren't really interested in getting involved in the game. They weren't really talking. They weren't really working hard. They weren't throwing their bodies on the line. They were the last thing from a leader. Now, they're doing everything. They're throwing their bodies on the line. They're chasing every ball. They're defending. They're working hard. They're creating chances. They're screaming. They're shouting. They're in the referee's face. They're in the opposition's face. They're leading. We've gone from a team of no leaders to a team of 4, 5, 6, 7 leaders in there. You all know the players I'm referring to. We've also added leadership in there, which is massive. Connor Cody, who has been a revelation. James Tarkowski, who has been a revelation, bringing Ghana back. A Ghana who's just played next to Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, Neymar for, 3 years. 3 of the best players on the planet. Arguably the greatest player of all time, some would say. He's brought that leadership back. Jordan Pickford has got that leadership now. Now, instead of having a conversation of, well, it doesn't really matter who has the armband because none of them are fucking leaders anyway, so it's just passed around. We're now having a conversation of, well, it doesn't really matter who has the armband because they're all leaders anyway. I mean, Connor Cody didn't have the armband on Saturday because obviously Seamus Coleman was back and Seamus is the club captain, and that's absolutely fine. Seamus gets the armband and that's right. But you will have noticed, if you watched Everton's behind the scenes video or whatever it's titled, and again, if you're on Twitter and you follow us on Twitter, you'll have seen the clip that we put up and various other Everton pages put up of Connor Cody walking out with the team. I think he's next to Coleman and Pickford as he walks out. They line up to do the fair play handshake as always, and Connor Cody just falls behind the line. So the players are lining up, he just drops behind, and he's like that. He's screaming, he's shouting, he's cheering the players up. And then he jumps back in the line. Tarkowski knocks him and does that as if to say, we're straight in here. Leadership. Now, he wasn't the captain. We weren't on television. So it wasn't like he was doing it for Sky or he was doing it for the cameras or he was doing it to look good. He was doing it because he's a leader. Because he's a natural leader. He leads by example. He leads by talking. He leads by chatting. How much has that helped? If you're prominent on social media, you'll have all seen the little sort of jokey relationship. I don't know if it is a joke, but seems like a jokey relationship that, Wayne pointed out the thing I read is Connor Cody's new nickname is that. Exactly what I was about to say. The relationship between Onana and Iwobi and a couple of the other sort of younger members of the team who refer to Connor Cody and James Tarkowski as dad, and it comes from Alex Iwobi. Done a video with Everton's official YouTube channel a few weeks ago, and he said that the pair of them are like the dads of the group, and now every time they mention each other, Iwobi will say, great game today, Dad, or Onana I think said good assist for Dad today the other day, and Cody will comment saying, nice one, my son, keep fit. I mean, when Iwobi scored on international duty, Cody commented saying, get your recovery in now, my son, good goal, and stuff like that. And whilst it all might seem a little bit, it's great that that's relationships, that players having a good laugh at each other, again, proves the point that it's just the overall happy place at the moment to be Everton Football Club, but also proves the point that you've got a lad there who has been at the football club for all of 2 months. 2 lads, so they say, including Tarkowski, that have been at the football club for all of 2 months, and already they're demanding that sort of level of respect from the rest of the players, the younger players, because of how much they lead. You know, wasn't never a case of, I'm not listening to that fella because he's only just walked through the door. It was a case of, well, I'll listen to him because he actually knows what he's talking about, and he's a decent fella, and he's a nice lad. Conor Cody and James Tarkowski are absolutely, they are, I mean, they're priceless to Everton Football Club at the moment. They really are. Not only for their ability as defenders, not only for their consistency as defenders, but for their leadership. They're absolutely priceless. You couldn't put a price on it. I would give Wolverhampton Wanderers, I'd give them 50, 60 million pound now for Conor Cody without, and I'm not, there's not even a air of irony or sarcasm within that statement whatsoever, because I cannot convey to you how important Conor Cody is to Everton Football Club. I cannot convey to you how important James Tarkowski is and everything they bring to Everton Football Club. Alex Iwobi has been excellent since Frank Lampard come in, and towards the back end of last season, Alex Iwobi was fantastic. He wasn't what he is now. Now he's a completely different level. And he's getting to that level because he's got players around him like Conor Cody, like James Tarkowski, like Garner, who are just natural, experienced leaders. And yeah, as I said, it's something that we haven't had at Everton Football Club recently, and we've needed for a long, long time. And you know, I can't begin to express how important it is that we've got that. And a lot of credit goes to Frank Lampard for being able to not only bring those players in, but also to understand what this Everton team has needed. I mean, you know, we had the net spend of £20 million this summer. We completely revitalised our defence by bringing in two centre-halves who will start every single week when they're fit. Even when Yerry Mina, Ben Godfrey, you know, Mason Holgate return from injury, none of them will get in over Cody or Tarkowski. The only way they're getting in is to give one of those two a rest, or if it's forced through injury, touch wood it isn't. We've completely revamped the midfield. We've gone from a midfield who was slow and lethargic and massively reliant on one player in Abdoulaye Doucouré and putting too much pressure on him, to a midfield of now, you know, one of the best in world football in his position. You know, another young lad who's 83 foot and absolutely unbelievable at football, and big and dominant and physical and moves and can throw a tackle in and wins the ball in the air, and, you know, is a good passer of the ball. And a lad who has just completely revitalised his career. It's just, you know, I don't want to get too carried away because we are only early on in the season, and I know there's still a lot of work, and I know it's a very, very long season, and in football is a very, very, very fickle sport, and you know, things can change within a couple of weeks. Things can go from, you know, fairy tale to sort of free fall in a matter of, you know, 2-3 weeks. But things are looking very, very, very positive for Everton at the moment, and I can only speak highly of Frank Lampard, Kevin Thelwell, and the lads that have come in for that. The Mighty Boo says midfield looks competitive again. He also says Cody, the leader we've needed, but more importantly, the leader we deserve. Yes. Connor Cole Daddy says classic. Daddy Cool says the Matty Boosh. He also says there's about 5-6 natural leaders in our squad now. Missed that for so long. Spot on. Liam says the work that has been put on behind the scenes is top class. The general mood of the club, the fans, the manager, and now in the recruitment have all boosted us so much in terms of the feel factor. As for leaders, take your pick now. Wayne says Matty, Defo, mate. Even Onana likes to shout. Onana's a natural leader. You know, for a lad who's 21 years old, coming into a new football club, a new country, a new way of living, and you know, again, you're seeing in his first sort of days of the football club that were filmed by Everton, he comes in straight away and he's talking to people and he's putting his arm around people and he's making friendships and he's, you know, he's engaging in people. He's not shy, he's not quiet. We've brought in personalities, but more importantly, you know, there's a fine line between bringing in players that have got a big personality and players that have got a big ego and will come in and say, yeah, I'm the fucking man here, I'll talk to everyone, but if I get told what to do, I'm not going to listen because I'm the big man. There's a fine line between bringing in players that have got personality and will get involved, but also will go, right, okay, he's the boss, I'm going to listen to him, or he's experienced, so I'll listen to him. Everton have got that wrong in the past. We've brought in personalities that aren't really asked about Everton, are only asked about themselves and think they're better than what they are. Now we're bringing in players that are really, really good at footy, but also have got the right personality to be a success in as an Everton player. Anyway, I suppose we should get on to talking about the game, really, because we've not really spoken about it much, and this is the game review, isn't it? We will get back into the live comments very, very shortly, so don't worry about that. If you are enjoying this live stream, by the way, please do hit that like button. 69 people watching. If you are enjoying, please hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe as well. That would mean a massive amount to me. If you're watching the YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below as well. We'll get involved with as many of them as we possibly can. A little bit of sort of news before we talk about the game. Everton of today announced the extension of the deal with Hummel. The deal will be extended until the summer of 2024, I believe, which basically means Hummel will make Everton's kits and training gear, and will manufacture all of Everton's official loungewear and stuff next season. I think it was the deal was originally the original deal was meant to end this summer, which would have meant that there'd obviously be conversations about a possible renewal or replacement for Hummel. But Everton have confirmed today that it has been extended by another year, and that Hummel will obviously return this summer with Everton's new kits for the next season, as well as obviously all of the training gear, which again we're going to talk a little bit more about on a separate live stream tomorrow. But I am reasonably happy with just in brief, before without talking too much about it, because I do want to speak about it tomorrow. I like Hummel. I like the gear. I like the designs. I like the loungewear. I think they've been the best manufacturer Everton have had in recent years, and yeah, I'm happy with this deal. I'm happy with this deal. Anyway, let's talk about the game, because that's what we're here to talk about. Everton obviously going into this one with the return of Jordan Pickford. Missed obviously the game before the international break due to an injury. We found out in Frank Lampard's press conference earlier on in the week that Jordan was available and fit again. Maybe a little bit unfair on Asmir Begovic because of how well he performed against West Ham, but the reality is Jordan's the number one, and if Jordan's the number one and Jordan's fit, then Jordan plays. Obviously, we know Seamus Coleman come in to replace Nathan Patterson. That was forced through an injury, and the rest of the team was as is, other than one other change, which was Dwight McNeil coming in for Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon, I believe, had not been feeling too well. I think under the weather was the term that was used, and therefore he dropped to the bench, and Dwight McNeil was given the opportunity to maybe show a little bit more than what he has done in previous appearances for Everton, and show Frank Lampard that he is there to compete, and he is a valuable member of the team, and that he did. Everton, I think, started the game again relatively well. Now it was a very, very bland first half of football with not a lot happening. I always felt Everton were in control in the first half. I always had this feeling of that Southampton A, weren't very good, and B, weren't ever going to really trouble Everton. Now obviously they got the first goal in the second half, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But barring a couple of moves that were defended well, or that they ended up having shots that were wildly over the bar or wildly wide. There was nothing that ever really sort of caused Everton any sort of real problem or any sort of real issue. I think the defence were relatively comfortable in James Tarkowski and Conor Cody. No real mistakes, lots of communication, as we said, lots of leadership. Jordan Pickford was never really put under any pressure in the first half. Granted, I'm sure Southampton fans could have said the same about Everton in that first half. We had one sort of half chance where a ball was fizzed across the box, and Conor Cody challenges for it, and the goalkeeper ends up getting there first, and unfortunately the bounce favours Southampton and ends up bouncing out. And as I said, they had a couple of sort of half opportunities where they maybe got the wrong side of us, took shots, but it was always, a comfortable save for Jordan Pickford, or it was lashed wide, or, out for a corner, which we then sort of... we then defended with no problem whatsoever. I thought there were a couple of standouts in that first half. Certainly I thought that Jisagana Gay was absolutely outstanding in that first half. Again, they had a little bit more of the possession, and whilst I think Everton were in control, I don't think we were particularly in control of the possession. I think they probably had a little bit more, but it almost felt like we were allowing that to happen. We weren't really fearful of what they could do defensively. We were always strong. We always knew what we were up against and what we had to do in terms of the defender, especially the likes of Che Adams, who of course is a big physical presence and could have caused a problem to the defence. But Idrissa Gana Gueye was vitally important in that first half in ultimately doing what Idrissa Gana Gueye does better than most, and that's throwing his foot in, when needing to, getting his foot in the way and throwing those challenges in and doing those little bits of dirty work that probably go unnoticed because they're not sort of magnificent sliding challenges, or you're not sitting here saying, oh my God, look at how amazing of a pass that was, or look at how amazing of a shot that was. But they're so important in the context of a game of football, that even though they do go unnoticed, and even though they aren't really, as I said, they aren't really highlighted when you're actually at the game and you're watching, it's wonderful how many times he just sticks a foot in, or how many times the opposition players or the opposition midfield are breaking with the ball, or they're looking dangerous in terms of getting at you and trying to create something, and Garner just sticks a foot in and just completely kills it off and just wins the ball back. Or if a ball is slightly misplaced by the opposition, obviously in this case Southampton, or a pass is slightly misplaced, Garner's on the end of it picking it up and sort of getting that recovery for Everton. And I think he's done that on 4 or 5 occasions in the first half, noticeably, where he stopped potential dangerous sort of attacks from happening. They never happened, and that's why we can sit here and say neither team really had much in the first half, and Southampton didn't really have much, and that was because there was a number of times in which Gana Gueye stopped that from happening with those little sort of touches, and with his ability to put his foot in and sort of stop that. So I thought he was absolutely excellent. I thought Iwobi, Onana were good. I thought they struggled a little bit to reach those levels that they had done before the international break, and I don't think that was necessarily because they were having a bad game, or they, a case of anything like that. I think it was just a case of the game wasn't really, moving in their favour. Couple of misplaced passes from either of them, but the work rate was still absolutely phenomenal from both. I mean, Alex Iwobi's work rate all game was absolutely brilliant. The forward line for the majority of that first half was absent. I don't think Damari Gray was particularly involved. As I said, he had a couple of crossing opportunities from corners and stuff which weren't great, and Dwight McNeil was really absent in that first half, I must admit. Mopey was getting about, putting himself about, frustrating players, but not really having any sort of end product in doing it, or not really having any sort of involvement in doing that. And as I said, the first half was very much of just two teams that weren't really causing each other much problem, but both sets of fans will have probably felt like their side was in control. I certainly felt, from an Everton point of view, that we were okay, we were doing okay, but I never felt any threat from Southampton. I remember sitting there at half time sort of thinking, we're doing all right here. This isn't by any sense of the imagination bad. We're away from home, we're keeping our own, and we're very much in the game and in control of the game. But again, it was almost that weird feeling that I haven't got very often recently as an Evertonian when I've gone away, because we've been awful away from home in recent years. But it was almost that feeling of, we absolutely should be winning this game. And it wasn't even a case of get a point and sort of get out. It was a case of, if we don't win this game, it will be disappointing because of Southampton showing in the first half. We obviously then come out for the second half, and again, possession-wise, we're sort of keeping the ball, we're moving it well, but, passes, I think, were a little bit wayward. That's what I would say on Saturday afternoon, is the passing was a little bit off. Now, maybe that's just because players are coming back from the international break, and obviously they've been away with, their international teams, and playing with different players, and in different situations, different settings, and obviously in much less competitive games. But I thought the passing was a little bit off time, and was a little bit off sort of telepathic connection, maybe was a little bit off, but again, nothing too, it wasn't like every pass was wayward. It was just a couple of passes in key moments were misplaced. And then Southampton get the goal after having a pretty perfect first half. Idrissa Gana Gueye gives the ball away really sloppily. It falls to Southampton. I don't know whether it was Adam Armstrong ends up coming forward, plays it into Aribo. He takes a touch in the box, fires away, and it's in the back of the net. And as I said in previous years, you're sort of sitting there thinking, right, that's it then. Everton have gone 1-0 down. We're away from home. there's absolutely not a chance we get back in this game. There's absolutely not a chance we win this game. There's not a chance we get anything out of it because we're away from home. We're 1-0 down, and we just don't we just don't win games from this position. There was a very different feeling I felt on Saturday. It was more a feeling of these aren't great. The goal has come from a direct mistake from us. Pick your heads up and go again. And it was not only a feeling that I think most of us in the stand felt, but it was very clearly a feeling that those players on that pitch felt, which is, again, even more sort of heartwarming's not the word, even more positive. It's one thing for us fans to sit here and say, these aren't very good, get your head up and get back into it. It's another thing for the players to actually be able to zone in on that mentality, and that's exactly what they did. Literally, a minute later, 30 odd seconds later, Southampton fans are still singing, celebrating their goal. Everton go up the other end, we win a free kick, ball gets put in, really, really, really nice ball in, I must admit. Great header at the back post by Amadou Onana. At first, I'm questioning why he didn't head towards goal, but then the more you actually watch the goal, and the more you actually watch Onana's header, the more you appreciate how technically good that actually is, to not only be able to, head it right on Conor Coady's volley, but also to understand, right, okay, I'm going to put this back across goal to guarantee it. Onana had two options there. He could have headed it towards goal, and, he'd have probably got a goal. It'd have probably went in, but it might have gone over, it might have gone wide, the keeper might have made the save, it mightn't have gone the way he wanted, or he could have guaranteed a goal by heading it back in, and either one of Conor Coady or Neil Maupay fanning it in for the guaranteed finish. And that's exactly what he did. He fired it in, and as I said, within 30 seconds, 40 seconds, Everton a level. Instant reaction, and a reaction which showed that these Everton players weren't willing to lie down, that it was a case of you pick yourself up and you go and you get straight back into the game, and that's exactly what we did. Then we had that moment, and this is all happening, by the way, within the space of 2 minutes. Everton went from being 0-0 to 2-1 within the space of 3 minutes, something like that. Then we had that moment, which I'm not going to talk about in a lot of detail because we spoke about it for about 5 minutes before, of the players throwing their bodies on the line, and again that come from a misplaced pass from Tarkowski. He misplaces it, they get on the attack, and instead of this time it forcing a goal, what happened was 4 or 5 Everton players threw themselves at the ball and were simply unwilling to concede. That is the only way I can really put it. It was an unwillingness to concede the second goal. It was almost like no, it's not happening. Not a chance is it happening. You're not scoring. And as I said, an immense amount of credit should be given to not only the players that were throwing their bodies on the line there, but the manager for instilling that. That's the standard. It's as simple as that. That's the standard. You throw everything at it, and until the ball hits the back of the net, and then if the ball does hit the back of the net, you pick it back up and you do what we did after, their goal, which is go up the other end and get another one. Literally within 30 seconds of, the players throwing themselves at the ball, Iwobi gets it, wonderful, wonderful cross. Onana is clearly fouled in the box. It wouldn't have been given because it's Everton. But Onana's pushed over in the box. Luckily enough, it falls to Dwight McNeil, and Dwight McNeil fires it into the roof of the net for 2-1, and all of a sudden, I've gone from being gutted to falling down 3 flights of stairs to Everton being 2-1 up, and if I'm being honest, in complete disbelief that we'd managed to turn the game around so quickly away from home. And I'm made up for the goal scorers. I'm made up for Conor Coady because, as I said, he's been an absolute revelation since joining Everton Football Club, and he has been exactly the type of player that Everton Football Club have needed for years and years and years and years. And I'm made up for Dwight McNeil. Dwight McNeil come out on his Instagram after the game and spoke about how he'd struggled physically and mentally over the last month or so with his form and with football. And, look, whether that has got anything to do with maybe some of the criticism he'd been receiving, I don't know. I'm not really here to sit here and talk about whether or not that is the case. But one thing is for sure is I know some people still don't seem to think it, because I had comments on the player ratings and the instant match reaction to suggest that people still didn't seem to think it. But trust me in when I say Dwight McNeil was much, much, much better the other day than what he has been in any of his previous appearances for Everton Football Club. Am I sitting here saying he's going to be world class, he's going to be amazing, oh my God, he was the best player on the pitch? Absolutely not. He was pretty non-existent in that first half, as were, a couple of other players in this Everton team. Am I sitting here saying, oh my God, he was a 10 out of 10, he was amazing? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is that his desire, his work rate, his want to win the ball back, his want to put himself in the way of challenges, put himself in the way of the ball, throw himself about, and add that to the fact his goal ultimately proves that his performance was much better than anything that has been. And I'm not saying it was still good enough, because, like everybody, it still could have been better, because it can always be better, but it was his best performance in an Everton shirt, without a shadow of a doubt. And that, for me, I don't see. And listen, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and everyone will have their own opinion, and that's completely fair enough. But I don't see a point in, okay, if you don't think he played particularly well, that's fine. But I don't think there'll be many Evertonians that would disagree with me when I say it was his best performance in an Everton shirt. Whether or not you might say, well, it still doesn't mean it's good enough, or it still wasn't great, that's fine. But if we're all admitting that it was his best performance in an Everton shirt, I don't really see the point in sitting here and being negative about it, because it makes no sense to me. It's completely counterproductive. We're sitting here talking about a lad who's just scored the winning goal in an important game. A really, really, really good finish, by the way. A left-footed finish from a tight angle, which no goalkeeper in world football is saving. And put in his best performance in an Everton shirt. So even though you might say, still wasn't great, for me, you can only give him plaudits. You can only give him positivity. By still being negative, it makes no sense to me. By being positive, you're promoting, yeah, that was good, that. You can do better, but that was good. That was an improvement. That was much better. Go again, go again, go again. And that will only build his confidence, and that will only build his momentum. And, that's what we want. We want a team full of players that are confident, that have got momentum, that have got belief in themselves. And I think Dwight McNeil was much, much better on Saturday than what he has been at any point in his time at the football club so far. We then get the second goal. Obviously, we make a couple of subs. Decore comes on, Tom Davis comes on to show the game up a little bit. Anthony Gordon obviously comes on to do a little bit of running around. And yes, we probably could have been a little bit better in that second half. Although the second half was a little bit defensive. It was a little bit route one of sit back, defend the lead, and don't concede again. And sometimes that goes for you, and sometimes that goes against you. As I said, maybe had we have, had other options, or maybe had we have had different players on the bench, we could have, maybe gone for a third, or maybe gone for the kill a little bit, because I think Southampton were very much there to be sort of put away, if you like, with a third goal or whatever. But, we didn't. Again, maybe it was a little bit negative. But we saw the game out. I've just realised, by the way, I missed a couple of memberships before, so let me jump into them. Wanderlust, member for 6 months. Thank you so much, mate. I really, really do appreciate it. And Matty, a member for 4 months. Thank you very much, my brother. I really appreciate it. As I said, maybe we could have attacked the game a little bit more. Maybe we could have been a little bit better in possession and in, again, killing the game off. But ultimately, we saw the game out, and that's all that matters. They had a couple of chances towards the end of the game. Jordan Pickford does what Jordan Pickford does and makes 2 or 3 absolutely world-class saves to deny them of getting back into it. And Everton see the game out and, guarantee our second Premier League win on the bounce, second Premier League win of the season. And as I said at the very start of the live stream, a comeback from being 1-0 down away from home to win a game. I mean, I asked on the Instant Match Reaction, and I don't think we got the comment, but can anybody tell me the last time Everton were 1-0 down away from home and went on and won the game in the Premier League? I don't know. I really, really don't know, and that just shows how far we've come from where we were, even 12 months ago under our manager, whose name shall not be mentioned. But yeah, really, really, really good win. Could it have been better? Absolutely. Could we have been better in the second half? Absolutely, but it doesn't matter because we've won the game, and, I think we're not really in the position to sit here and moan about a win away from home after being 1-0 down, because we could have been a little bit better. There's, obviously you acknowledge that and you try and improve on that, but you also acknowledge how big of a win that is, and how it sets us up nicely to face a Manchester United team who are in all sorts of turmoil at the moment for one reason or another on Sunday. So hopefully we can go and make it 3 wins on the bounce, and then we're looking in really, really, really good stead. But really, really good win. Good performance, as I said, unbelievable character and desire and leadership and determination shown, in that couple of minutes after going 1-0 down. And there's just something different about this Everton team. There's just something different about the football club at the moment that I haven't been able to say for a long, 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 long time. And long, 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 long may it continue, by the way. Long may it continue. Eugene says, former Blue Van der Beek told he can leave Man United. Very nice. Hopefully not to be anywhere near Everton again. Jamie O'Hara hails unbelievable Connor Cody transfer. Absolutely. The Blues says he's boss, isn't he? Little snide the way he cuts off passing lanes and forces them to kick it straight back. Talking about Mopey. Yeah, I thought again, whilst not being massively involved, I thought he had a good game. Good solid game on Saturday, Neil Mopey. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there then. If you have enjoyed this one, please, please, please do hit that like button. If you watch live, massive, massive thank you for getting involved. I really, really do appreciate it. And if you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below as well. Still got players to come into this team, by the way. Dominic Calvert-Lewin, James Garner, both to still make appearances this season in the Premier League. Both players that will only strengthen this Everton team more and more. But a big, big win. A massive win, in fact. And we can finally celebrate 2 wins on the bounce and look forward to a game on Sunday, which will be difficult, but again, a game that I am incredibly excited for because it just is really, really exciting time to be an Evertonian at the moment. The feel-good factor, I just want to be at Goodison every week. I want to be watching Everton every week. I love these players, every single one of them I love. I've gone from, I won't use the word hate because I don't want to be negative, but I've gone from a distinct unlikeliness to this Everton team to an absolute love for every one of them, and that just shows how good of a job Frank Lampard has done. Anyway, look, we are going to finish it there. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. As I said, if you're watching as a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below. Massive, massive thank you to everybody for getting involved in the live comments. We're close to 7,200 subscribers now, so if you could hit that subscribe button, that would mean an absolute massive, massive amount to me as well. But big, big thank you all for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you later.